Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's Reddit stories are from Entitled People. Story 1 is by AccidentProne9988. You paid for a kid's milk? Now buy my cigarettes. I used to work at a little convenience store in a very small town. Every customer was a regular. I had this one kid who was about 12 years old. He came every school day on his bike. He bought a chocolate milk and a thing of cheese crackers every day. The total at the time was $2.08 after tax, USD. The kid always paid in change like it came out of his piggy bank. One day he came in with this look that said he had a really bad day. He shuffled through the store and grabbed his usual, but was short about 10 cents. He went to put his crackers up and I pulled a dime out of my pocket, smiled at him saying it's all good and enjoy his snack. The kid thanked me and left looking quite a bit happier. The next customer was a regular as well, but a man in his 40s wanting his usual pack of cigarettes. I ring him up and tell him the total. He smiles and says, "Well, aren't you paying for it?" I tell him no. He proceeded to yell at me that if I'm buying customer stuff, I should pay for his cigarettes. There was a line of customers behind him that saw what happened with the kid. I tell him there's a difference between helping a kid who is slightly short for after-school snack and a fully grown man trying to force a woman to buy his smokes. He starts yelling at me about favoritism, and I look him in the eyes and tell him, "Yeah, and?" He proceeds to yell insults at me before I simply grab his cigarettes and put them back on the shelf. The guy is like, "What are you doing? I'm buying those." I respond, "Not today, and not from me. Please leave." He starts to reach across the counter when I step back. Now, it's important to note that I was about 7 months pregnant at the time, and stepping back revealed my pregnant belly. I'm short, so the counter typically hid this feature. I wasn't doing it to reveal anything, I was just getting out of reach. The customers behind him started to almost riot about attacking a pregnant woman for helping a kid. The guy was no longer a regular. He left in a huff, and every customer behind him started an after-school snack fund for the kid. Started with the first guy putting an extra $1 on the counter for the kid, and it just kept going, till I've set a jar. The kid had free chocolate milk for almost a month before I had to go on maternity leave. Unbelievable entitlement. To think that somebody pulling a dime out of their pocket to pay for a kid's after-school snack means you're going to pay for somebody's addiction. Not cool. Definitely not cool. This is one of those stories that I definitely question. Is it real? Did it happen? Because it's almost too perfect. Everyone at the store knows that this guy is in the wrong. There's no way this is real. There's no way this is real. Because how is somebody that entitled? It's unbelievable to me. Our next story is by Advanced77. My sister stole the card I got for my dad's birthday. I bought my dad a card for his birthday a few days ago and put it into my drawer in my room. I was looking for it today so I could write in it, and I looked in the drawer I set it in and it wasn't there. I checked all of my drawers like 20 times and couldn't find it, so I went downstairs to ask my mother to get a new one because I lost mine. But I saw a card sitting on the table in an envelope the same shape as the one I got. I thought there was a chance it could be mine, so I took it out and saw that my sister had already written in it and had the audacity to write her and her daughter's name in it as well, along with mine. So she went through my drawers and stuff while I was away, and she just took it without asking because she couldn't be bothered getting her own. See, at first I thought maybe you guys just picked the same cards, because I've noticed in the past that families tend to have the same taste in cards. But yeah, she put your name in it too, so she definitely took this from your drawer. It's not okay for her to take this without asking unless you guys had some prior arrangement, which you obviously did not have. Our next story is by Reverend Muddy Grimes. Lady drove through her garage door and tried to claim it under warranty. I'm a 50 male and I've been installing and repairing garage doors and openers. At this point, I know my craft. I can usually tell what I'm getting into when the call comes in. About 2 months ago, I installed a door and opener on a new construction home. 6 weeks ago, the house sold to a woman about my age. I received a warranty call that the cable came off. No problem, it usually means that it came down on something. Easy fix. I arrived on the job to the door hanging sideways. The giant bend in the bottom panel matched the shape of the hatchback. I pointed it out. She argued that it came off on its own. Personally, I don't care, but I hate being lied to. So I fixed it to the best of my ability with 2 severely damaged panels. Yesterday, I received a call from her claiming that the door is having issues closing. I pointed out the bends in the panels and how it's binding the door. She swears that it happened before she drove through it. I smiled and asked if she just admitted driving through the door. She got mad and had me reprogram the opener. I told her that if it didn't work, it's just because of TGE panels. She assured me it wasn't, and it was now fixed. She just called me back to let me know it wasn't working. This one hits a little close to home. We didn't back into our garage door, but we had some ice happen in the wintertime, and it froze the door shut, and we were trying to open the garage door without really thinking of it. And the garage door, bent. The top of it bent, and the mechanism inside, that bent as well. The whole frame is bent. It was quite awful. Never, ever try to open a garage door if there's potentially ice holding it down. It sucks, but you live and you learn. Always check to see if there's ice holding it down before you open it up. Our next story is by Conjure Discord. Entitled Resident closes the pool. So I woke up this morning to a hot Saturday heat, looking forward to using the apartment community pool. As I get ready to head out, there's a sign in the elevator stating the pool is closed or reserved from 2:30 to 7, with exclamation points. My first thought is that's disappointing. Then it struck me. The sign looks like a 12-year-old made it. They didn't even use black as the ink color, which is not normal for my apartment management. So then I'm furious since I know that someone is likely trying to close the apartment shared pool for their own personal use. Keep in mind we all pay for the pool as it's an amenity. So I went to go talk to management and it turns out I was right. They didn't put those signs up, and an entitled resident just tried to pull one over on the entire complex for a private party. Update, I don't think they have the guts to throw it still. Either that, or they haven't come out yet, or they got told they can't do it. Last update, so it was gone for a few hours and there's only 2 groups left at the pool. What looks like 7 to 8 young adults and a mother with kids. I'm leaning towards the young adults being the culprits. I guess we'll never know who posted that. It is slightly possible, too, that someone was just trying to prank the entire group and see how many people would just not go to the pool. If it's true, though, that somebody actually did try to reserve the pool for their own private party, that is super entitled. Can you imagine it's 90 degrees on Saturday and you're like, oh, I have a pool I can go to. This is great, even if it's a community pool, because, they're not the most sanitary things in the world. And then someone has the gall to say that it's closed from 2:30 to 7. That would be the worst, because I love swimming. Our next post today is by I Did a Bad Thing. Racist restaurant host left the business because he felt like his beliefs and rights were being violated. I mentioned to an older coworker that I had recently made a Reddit account, and he read my prior posts laughing. Then he asked me to tell a story from back in the 90s. The story was good, so I agreed. I typed this out as he told it to me. So just think of it as him and not me. But since I'm hearing this secondhand, there's no way for me to prove that any of this is true. So please keep that in mind. My great uncle used to own a fairly fancy country club style restaurant and lodge. The kind that was a little hard to find in the days before GPS, but so worth it because there was reserved dining, a place to park RVs for night stays, and even places to play poker. He even had D&D groups coming from time to time. About 30 years ago, when he still owned the business, he hired a man I'll call Crane. Crane was a rail skinny balding man with a comb-over, a big pointy nose, and a very well-groomed mustache. My uncle hired him because Crane seemingly had an excellent resume and lots of experience on the job working in high-class restaurants. Crane also claimed to have been active in multiple Civil War reenactments, which he always played a Confederate. For context, we lived in the North U.S. Because of where the lodge was located, Crane was allowed to live on site in an RV he'd brought with him, since he had nowhere else to go. My great-uncle had allowed employees to live on site before when he hired people who were down on their luck. and it helped them to start over. Crane was a self-described city man, so why he ended up out in the boonies with an RV was anyone's guess. But people usually only moved out to places like that if they wanted to disappear. Crane generally rubbed me the wrong way, and only acknowledged me because I was related to my great-uncle. At the time I was working there washing dishes and waiting tables, Crane looked at me and most other employees like we were beneath him, with squinting eyes and a raised tone. Till then, I thought I only saw people like him in cartoons, but this guy was every fancy stereotype you can imagine, right down to the penguin tuxedo he insisted on wearing. The only time I ever wore a tux was to my own wedding, and it was rented. Crane seemingly put up a good front and went the extra mile for the customers he liked. He was a complete jerk to those he didn't. After a couple months, complaints had been coming in of Crane turning people away at the door and even pretending to have lost reservations. And the people he did this to most were people that were not white. He didn't get away with it very much, though, as a call for the manager or my great-uncle often cowed him. But he refused to stop either. I wish I had greater detail on this, but it was 30 years ago. Eventually, my great-uncle got in a big altercation with Crane over turning away customers and Crane's attitude. The man doubled down and acted as though he were right about everything, and also used many racist terms to describe people. My great-uncle was ready to fire Crane on the spot, but the man quit before anyone could say anything else. He actually threw a cloth napkin on the floor and yelled that he was once again being discriminated against for his beliefs, and that his rights as a man weren't being met. Then he stormed out the door yelling no one understands him anymore and he'd be moving back to the South, where people will agree with him. Then he took off in his RV. No one I know has seen or heard from Crane since, but I feel like he's exactly the type of person who'd claim to be a sovereign citizen, if you get my meaning. My great-uncle sold the lodge and retired about 15 years later, and passed away at the ripe old age of 88. The lodge eventually went out of business under the new owners and was repurposed into a private estate. Racism exists everywhere. It's not just the U.S., and it's certainly not just the southern part of the U.S. It exists in the northern parts of the United States as well, but there's a lot of countries where people still are rampantly racist. This is something when I was young I said to myself, well, racism is just in old people and we have to let their ways kind of die off. It'll happen in our lifetime. No, it won't. It's ingrained in some people and they do spread it to their kids. It's honestly like a disease. Racism has no place here. Racism has no purpose. What it generally boils down to is people want somebody else to blame when their life isn't going well. Our stories for today have come to a close. Until we meet again, have a beautiful day.